Ready to begin when you are, Sterling.
Great, thank you, Hannah. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the February 2025 webinar for CLARiTI. I'm Sterling Johnson, one of the PIs. I'm joined by Beth Mormino and many of our team here, Sarah Biber, who's also on our MPI team, and Bud Kukul. We are going to give you an update today on CLARiTI. We'll start with some overall study updates from Erin. And then we will turn the time over to NACC to tell us about all the amazing work that they're doing to support the CLARiTI project. So let me turn it to Erin Chin.
Good, thank you so much. All right, next slide, please. All right, we'll go over a couple study startup updates, including our site initiation visits, as well as our handbook, and then a couple announcements following. Next slide, please. All right, congratulations to our latest round of sites that have completed the site initiation visits. That's Arizona ADRC, USCSD, Wake Forest, South Texas, and UC Irvine. We do have quite a few more scheduled. Next slide. Thank you. I just wanted to go over this. I'll be showing this every single time we meet, whether it be a webinar or elsewhere, the CLARiTI site activation progress. So you can see we do have 10 sites that are still in process, getting their informed consent forms reviewed. They're possibly being reviewed with WCG. We do have 12 sites that have scheduled their site initiation visits. We've got quite a few scheduled for March and April. And we have 13 sites that have since completed their SIV. So right now we're working on site activation for those 13 sites. So hopefully, March will definitely be a big month for us as far as getting sites activated. So just a reminder for scheduling those site initiation visits for any of the sites that have yet to do that. These site initiation visits are with our central monitoring service, so they take about 4 to 5 hours. The site PI is required to be there for the first 1 to 2 hours, depending upon how many questions that we have. You'll go over a protocol review with Sterling, a regulatory review. You'll hear from our project coordinators. They go into the case report forms in great detail, and then you'll also hear from our central monitoring service as well. So we do have a couple sites scheduled for later this month in February. We've got Indiana, Washington University, and Yale scheduled for March 10th, March 28th, Kentucky, Northwestern, and University of Washington. NYU, April 7th there. We do have quite a few slots available, so you will continue working with your project coordinator and the regulatory team to make sure that all of your regulatory documents are in order. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so you may have already seen version 2 of the CLARiTI study handbook in the CLARiTI Connect newsletter that came out yesterday, I believe. So we've been working hard on this one. A couple tweaks here and there. We've definitely added some additional content as we've been developing this program. It was a huge lift. Thanks so much to the NACC team. We've worked with Inclusion Core, Visual Reads Core, Return of Results Core. Lots of people, put a lot of content, time, and energy into creating this handbook for you all. So please review it and let us know if there's anything else that you want to know that we can put in version 3. Next slide, please. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Sarah Fernandez-Taylor from the Access Core.
Thank you. We are pleased to announce that Inclusion Core is now Access Core. Our new name more accurately reflects our goal of providing community members with access to research opportunities and brain health resources. And we hope to support CLARiTI's mission to include everyone in our research for the benefit of all the communities we serve and with whom we collaborate. Thank you.
Sarah.
Thank you, Dr. Fernandez-Taylor. It's the Inclusion Core, now the Access Core, has been a big part of our lift and our launch, and we're just excited to continue to partner with you and thankful for all the support you're providing the study from the outset to make sure our study is inclusive and that we have the generalizability we want right from the start. And I just want to reiterate that our guiding principles and our values here are the same as they've always been, and we want to maintain that cohesion and support with our participants and with the communities that they represent in this research study. Thank you, Sarah.
Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. All right, great. Hannah will put a link in the chat for the ADRC spring meeting, May 5th and 6th. So if you have not already done so, please go ahead and register for that. We will also have our CLARiTI investigators meeting the following day. So that'll be on May 7th from 8:30 until 11:30 a.m. This will be the first time that we'll be together. You'll be hearing from all of our core leads. Breakfast will be provided. You're going to get an update from each of our core. We'll certainly have some time for Q&A and time for networking as well. The room capacity is 150. This isn't meant to be, exclusive by any means, but we do have a max limit. So we've been seeing the RSVPs come in. We do encourage site PIs to attend in person. It would be great to have you there. This will be a first come, first serve basis. And just so everybody knows, there will be a virtual option for all to attend. All right, and just one last update here, our upcoming webinar. So I just wanted to note that this is a date change from what was previously announced. The return of results webinar was going to be in March. We have pushed that out a little bit into April. So that's going to be April 16th at 12 p.m. So you'll be hearing from our return of results core leads talking about their new toolkit. So that'll be a great one, jam-packed with lots of information for you all. And I will pass it off to Sarah and Heather from NACC. Thank you.
Hey, Erin, before we pass it on to NACC, I just wanted to chime in again and just thank all of you who've completed your site initiation visits or have that scheduled. I know it's a lot of work and it's a lot of things to check off and hoops to get through, but we're so appreciative of that. We would like to get through all of the ADRCs by the first half of the year. So by the end of June, we hope to get through everybody and have this study up and running at all of the ADRCs. And I think we're well on our way, as we saw here today so far. And looking forward to the next steps of this exciting project. All right, go ahead, Sarah and Heather.
Okay, great. Thank you. So it's great to be here with all of you, and I'm excited to update you on how we're expanding and streamlining both our informatics and operational infrastructure at NACC to advance the CLARiTI initiative. I'm also delighted to have several of my team members at NACC joining me here today to provide an update on our progress. I'm going to start, if you can go to the next slide, please, by giving an overview of kind of the big picture. Next slide. So next slide. Over the past few years, NACC has been expanding and deepening our role as the centralized data repository and communication and collaboration hub for NIA's ADRC program. And as part of that growth, we're really excited to partner with critical studies like CLARiTI to further leverage the unique strengths of the ADRC program and NACC to advance ADRD discovery and translation. Next slide. So the CLARiTI partnership will really enable us and also empower others in the research community to tackle some of the most pressing challenges in the field. And this includes identifying and parsing the various intersecting causes of cognitive impairment, validating blood biomarkers, and also improving the generalizability of findings. So CLARiTI is really leveraging the clinical heterogeneity of the ADRC program, of the NACC cohort, to do some critical science that would not be possible in other clinical settings. Next slide. So we're partnering with CLARiTI to support their goals. These include identifying etiological profiles using imaging, plasma, and anti-mortem biomarkers and clinical phenotypes, and then validating the neuropathology. That is also made possible by over 60% of deceased participants that are part of the ADRC program choosing to donate their brains. CLARiTI is also providing resources to advance standardized biomarker data collection across the ADRC program. And then woven throughout is really a focus on ensuring the CLARiTI cohort is representative of the US population so that we can ensure the generalizability of findings. So we're aiming to include 2,000 participants from the ADRC program as part of the CLARiTI from a recruitable pool of what we estimate to be around 11,000. And that will include multiple data points across several years. Next slide. So we've been partnering closely with CLARiTI to really incorporate it into the milieu of the broader ADRC program and ADRC ecosystem. So over the past nearly year and a half, we've really expanded NACC's informatics and operational infrastructure to successfully launch the CLARiTI initiative across the ADRC program. So, we have also been ensuring that these efforts are really synergized with other key ADRC program initiatives. So we're actively building out pipelines and processes to amplify collection of fluid biomarkers in collection with NICRAD, with imaging data in collaboration with SCAN, and also working with Dr. Durkeen and team to establish a pipeline for digital neuropathology integration as part of this initiative. So all this new data will be integrated with the other data streams that are available at NACC and shared with ADRCs via the ADRC portals and with researchers everywhere via the NACC data front door. We're also collaborating with CLARiTI and ADRCs to return results to participants. So that is a first for NACC. Additionally, we're developing operational systems to ensure that all of you, our ADRCs, are compensated for the data submissions. Next slide. So you're going to hear more details about the operational informatics solutions that NACC and CLARiTI are developing from other members of my team today, but I want to share a few high-level informatics highlights. Next slide. So the informatics support that NACC is providing for CLARiTI includes a dynamic electronic data capture, submission, and tracking system that includes a case report form that you'll hear a lot about from Hannah. It also includes building pipelines, as I mentioned, for amplifying and integrating key data streams in collaboration with partners, and expanding our data sharing infrastructure to accelerate breakthrough discoveries. Next slide. So one thing that has been important to keep in mind as we pursued this work is that the overall ADRC program imaging landscape is really expanding right now. So there's now lots of standardized MRI and PET data being collected, integrated, and shared via NACC's collaboration with the SCAN initiative. So many of these SCAN compliant images are coming from affiliated studies funded by R1s. The new ADRC P30 requirement for 24 ATN sets per year will also be an additional source of SCAN compliant images that are being collected. And the CLARiTI initiative will fund and further amplify collection of additional SCAN compliant MRI and PET images, as well as add a new advanced MRI data stream. Lastly, we have many sites that continue to submit mixed protocol MRI and PET data to NACC that is also shared by NACC with the broader research community. So it's a pretty complex and expanding imaging landscape. And with that in mind, given those increasing complexities, we really feel that it's critical to try and help streamline, these processes for ADRCs. And in a recent survey, that was distributed this January, 94, we heard from all of you that you agreed with that streamlining. And so 94% of ADRCs of, all 35 that responded said it would be very helpful or helpful to have a single streamlined submission image interface within the ADRC portals. 91% of you told us that it would be very helpful to view, audit, and access all of the imaging data that's submitted for your participants via the ADRC portals that are housed within the larger NACC data platform. So with that in mind, we have been, next slide please, teaming up with CLARiTI, SCAN, and Lonnie to come up with a framework for how we might streamline image processing for the ADRC program. So this new streamlined pipeline will feature a single point of image submission and data sharing. We'll leverage existing analysis pipelines, including, of course, the wildly successful SCAN pipeline, and will be extensible for future ADRC program needs. So we're very excited about that. Once again, all of this imaging data will be shared back with all of you for your participants via the ADRC portals, and then researchers everywhere will be able to access all of that imaging data via the NACC data front door. So next slide. So as part of this, I want to emphasize again, building off of the SCAN initiative, which has been incredibly successful. So you can, right now we are actively sharing, imaging data for SCAN as well as analysis results. So that includes volumetric data and SUVRs for amyloid and tau. Next slide. So you can see in real time how much data we have available by going to the NACC data front door, going to the our real-time dashboards via the NACC data front door. So there's a link down there for that to see how much is available to the research community right now from the SCAN initiative. So as of this morning when I checked, there were more than 17,000 MRI series, more than 5,000 PET scans. And so you can access that data, or anyone can access that data by submitting a 15-minute data request through our quick access file data request system. And you can get all of that data sent to you within 24 hours. Next slide. Okay, so you can see here that we've had a large increase in data utilization, NACC data utilization. And I will note that over the past 3 years, a 250% increase, the average number of monthly data requests. And I want to note that about 71% of those new requests include standardized imaging data. So one of the things that we see is that we start to add these additional valuable data modalities. The utilization of this data really starts to go up by researchers across the world. So that's very exciting. Next slide. Okay. So digital neuropathology is another important component of the CLARiTI initiative. So all CLARiTI digital neuropathology data will be analyzed at the University of Washington Brain Lab, led by Dr. Dirk Keen. The metadata, raw images, and analysis results will then be integrated and shared also via the NACC data platform. Next slide. Fluid biomarker analyses will be performed by NICRAD, by Dr. Tatiana Faroud's team, and the resulting analysis will then be integrated and shared via the NACC data platform. So pulling it all together, this is a view of all the data types that we are collaborating with CLARiTI to build out new streamlined pipelines for. So I'm not going to go into all the details, but you'll hear some of the details in some of these pipelines from other members of my team. And also, as we continue to develop them, we will be sharing updates with all of you. Next slide. And I also want to mention, so you can kind of see how all the different pieces are pulled together here, that all of this data that we're pulling together as part of CLARiTI will also be integrated with all of the other data modalities that we have collect, house, and share at NACC. So you can see those represented here in this larger picture of our data platform. And that, of course, includes, and metadata analysis data that we're pulling in from other partner repositories and initiatives, including NICRAD, NIGADS, AD Knowledge Portal, and others. Next slide. So once again, you're going to be able to, this is just a zoom in of the ADRC portals, which are part of the NACC data platform. And so that's where you'll be able to go for CLARiTI, be able to submit your data, to be able to view, audit, track, and access participant data. And there'll also be on-demand, program-wide dashboards and reports that are available there. Next slide. The data front door serves as the one-stop shop, will serve as a one-stop shop for all CLARiTI data and enable researchers to access this data alongside other modalities available at NACC. So researchers will be able to request CLARiTI data via our quick access file data request system, similar to how they're doing for SCAN right now. They'll be able to view dashboards with up-to-date information on CLARiTI data availability, and also build cohorts with CLARiTI data and other NACC data modalities using our new cohort browser tool. So I want to show a quick cartoon of that on the next slide. And essentially, this is something that we're going to be launching a prototype of this May. So another great reason to come to the ADRC meeting. And essentially what this cohort tool is, this multimodal query tool is going to allow is for researchers to rapidly match their data, their research questions, the data we have available at NACC. And then we're also going to be enabling researchers to more easily access data for ADRC participants that is housed at other partner repositories as part of this. So we're really, really excited about this. I really think that this is going to make it a lot easier for researchers to ask and answer critical new questions in the field. So we look forward to sharing more about that tool this May. Next slide. So in conclusion, our partnership with CLARiTI is really going to be making critical new data streams, new standardized, high quality, and harmonized data modalities available, not just to ADRCs, but to the global research community for these ADRC participants. And of course, by making all these data modalities available for the same participants via the data front door and its associated components, NACC and CLARiTI will be able to enable researchers to ask and answer critical new questions to advance the field and increase data utilization across all of these partner repositories. So we're very excited about that. And I want to just thank before we, next slide, please. Oh, it's not there. I'll come back to that at the end. I'm going to pass off to Heather and my team. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Sarah. I'm going to be providing an update on the operational support that NACC has been providing, especially in this critical startup period of the study. So we're partnering with the CLARiTI Admin Core in a few key ways, with study startup support, subawards, and communications. So first, for study startup, we've administered surveys for data-informed decisions, developed a study startup dashboard to give broad visibility on site activation progress, and developed a CLARiTI-specific directory which can house both ADRC and non-ADRC members to help generate CLARiTI communications. That directory currently has 1,200 people in it, so that's very exciting. I did want to do a zoom in here on the study startup dashboard. This is accurate as of late yesterday, I guess you could say. So obviously the more green, the better, and it is sorted by those closest to site activation. So I encourage you to click on the QR code here to see how your site is progressing, and we hope that you use it often to keep track of your progress and reach out to your CLARiTI concierge with any questions on any of the steps. Next, I wanted to move into subawards. So as you know, subaward processing is well underway. Here's a new diagram to give you a sense of where we're at with that. As I mentioned in the January webinar, we have one subaward that's fully executed and another one that's issued. The remaining 27 sites are currently with the University of Washington OSP, and we are awaiting documentation from 4 sites at this point in time. And here's where we are with the subaward timeline. We are expecting at this point, and we've sent site-specific communications to each of your sites, but the majority of those 27 sites that are currently with University of Washington OSP are anticipated to be issued in mid to late March. So we're expecting most of those to come through in that time frame and continuing into Q2. I did want to return to the payment process. So now that we're getting towards moving past the subawards and into the study execution mode, I wanted to talk through some of the details about how you will be paid. So once all your site readiness activities are completed, you'll begin consenting participants and conducting protocol visits. And then by submitting data and case report forms, that's your way of letting NACC know that procedures are being performed. And NACC will be integrating and QCing all of that data and making that data available on a payment dashboard. So that's where you'll be able to see the list of procedures to help facilitate your invoicing process. So you'll use the information from the payment dashboard to generate an invoice. You're also welcome to include personnel costs on that invoice as well. And then you'll be submitting those invoices as outlined in your subaward agreement. So that's submitting to the UWashington at ghxinvoicing.com, as well as copying NACC grants on that information. Then NACC will be approving those invoices and generating payments. And then, the next quarter or the payment dashboard will be updated at that point in time. And then the next quarter, as you continue to submit data, you'll repeat that process for the remaining procedure and personnel costs for the remainder of the year. A few more notes on the payment dashboard. We are currently finalizing and refining the requirements for the dashboard at this point in time. Some of the key features is that it will be real-time procedure tracking and verification to facilitate those accurate quarterly invoices. It will include your up-to-date payment status, so listing whether things are eligible to be paid or paid. And of course, searchable for the date range, so you can filter down to your current quarter that you're taking a look at. So that's what I wanted to talk to you today about subawards. And at this point, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Mark Bauer, who is the NACC Communications Manager.
Thank you, Hannah, or Heather, sorry, and thank you everyone for joining us. I just want to take a few minutes to share some of our exciting communications updates coming up. The first thing I want to talk about was the CLARiTI Connect newsletter. This is a monthly newsletter that we release. We've already released about 7 editions, and each is packed with critical study updates, interviews, insights, and you even gets to meet some of the CLARiTI team. This is all put together by the great work from our admin core. And this is our primary way of keeping you informed. So if you haven't been receiving it, please check your spam filter or reach out and ensure you're subscribed so you don't miss out. The other thing we don't want you to miss out on is the ADRC program community forum, which I think you've probably heard us mention before. This is an online platform that allows for two-way communication. So you can ask us questions, you can collaborate, you can connect with both the CLARiTI team and other ADRCs. All 35 ADRCs are currently active, and we even have dedicated CLARiTI specific groups as well. So if you haven't joined yet, we encourage you to accept the invitation and jump right into the conversation. The major update that we're really excited about coming up is our new website. Right now, our current website is primarily designed for researchers, but we recognize that we also need to engage participants. So that's why we're developing an entirely new section to the website that is dedicated to this audience. And it'll explain what CLARiTI is, why it matters, and most importantly, how people can get involved and how people can become participants. We're also adding expanded resources for researchers and brain health education. And again, thanks to our admin core and the access core who are working hard on the content on this. We're aiming to hopefully launch this in late March. So that'll be an exciting update. And then finally, I'll echo what Erin said earlier, and a reminder to register for the spring ADRC meeting and the investigators meeting. We hope to see you all there, and register today. It's already open. You can follow that link or the link that was in the chat. Thank you so much for your time. And with that, I'll hand it over to Hannah to talk about electronic data capture.
Thank you, Mark. Hi, I'm Hannah Koenig. I am the CLARiTI Data Manager, and I'm going to talk about electronic data capture today. So in order to access NACC's electronic data capture system, or the EDC, you can access it straight from the ADRC portal, going to the Submit Data link. And from there, that will take you to the different data pipelines that we have. Today, I'm going to specifically cover the electronic case report forms that are available via REDCap. So this is just a quick look at the REDCap system for the CLARiTI EDC project. This is a screenshot of what you will see on the record status dashboard. So each individual site will have records that you can see for each individual participant. This is actually a live screenshot from Wisconsin that has 8 participants already filling in data, which is super exciting. We're very excited about it. And also a screenshot of a CRF that you will see within the system to enter data. And we have a walkthrough that's going to show some examples of this in a later slide. So as I alluded to, the EDC is live, which is very exciting. We have enrollment forms that are available for data entry. Currently in testing with our team are the baseline visit forms and the adverse event and serious adverse event forms. We're just going through and making sure the data functionality and different branching logic that are necessary within the forms is all working smoothly to ensure data is entered accurately and it's easy for those entering data to use. Forms that are currently under construction include protocol deviations, return of results, and participant study exits. Once all of those have been tested, they will also be added to the live EDC. And by the time most sites have been activated, all of these forms should be available within the project. And we're just going to show a quick walkthrough video of some functionality within the EDC itself. This is a brief overview of some data functionality for the NACC EDC for CLARiTI data collection using the CLARiTI EDC REDCap data project. Here's an example of a record status dashboard for an individual ADRC. The number of records shown in this dashboard reflect the number of approved participants for this subaward. Along the top, you can see different study time points for the protocol. Each individual column represents an individual CRF for data collection. Let's look at some data functionality within the screening and eligibility CRF. Information from the identifier CRF will be shown in each header for each individual CRF throughout the project. This includes participant ID and NACC ID and ADRC information. This will allow for the individual entering data to verify they are entering data into the correct record. Additional skip logic has been built into each form to let fields appear or be hidden based on the value of other fields. For example, if a participant is cognitively impaired, additional fields will appear to be entered for that participant. However, if a participant is cognitively unimpaired, these fields will be hidden and additional fields for inclusion will appear further down the form. At the bottom of this form, a calculation for participant eligibility has been coded directly into REDCap for an equation to find eligibility for each participant. This takes into account all inclusion and exclusion criteria to show if a participant is eligible or ineligible for participation. Additional data checks and warnings have been coded into each individual CRF to make sure that all data is entered accurately for each participant. Additionally, for things like e-signature, an individual must be assigned to a site PI or clinician role in order to complete this form. This data functionality and these data checks are being entered into the individual CRFs across the project and across records to make sure that all data being entered is accurate and correct for each participant. This is a brief overview. Okay, so now that we've gone over functionality, I just want to cover a brief overview of what training will look like. So for the NACC EDC for CLARiTI, there are two main training pathways. All staff that will be interacting with the EDC will receive training on an overview and CRF training during your site initiation visit. You will also receive training on how to navigate the record status dashboard, so identifying records that need data entered or reviewed. You will also receive training on how to enter the data and how to open and close data query resolutions. This is actually a really nifty tool within REDCap. If there's a question or some sort of issue with a specific field for a record, you can open a query and tag either someone on your team or the CLARiTI data team, and it will take us directly to that field that you have a question about. So it kind of negates a bunch of emails that could go back and forth with confusion. It goes right to that field. Within training, there are two main pathways based on what your role in CLARiTI and interaction with the EDC will be. First is study staff. This includes individuals that are study coordinators, data managers, or really any other ADRC individual who will be entering the bulk of data for the CRFs. You will receive additional training for marking records for review and signature, and any corrections that need to be made within a record. On the other side, site PIs and site clinicians will receive additional training for identifying records that need additional review and how to add signatures to complete that review. So how can you access all this awesome data? You need a single sign-on account. In order to gain access to single sign-on, you will need a record in the NACC directory. In order for a record to be created, your site ADRC administrator will create a record for you containing contact information, your CLARiTI role, and what portals you will need access to. In order to interact with the EDC, you will need ADRC portal access and access to our REDCap instances. Once a record has been created with your contact information, you'll receive an email for you to accept this account. And then once you've completed training and undergone your SIV, you will be added to the EDC training environment. This is an exact copy of the live EDC project. It allows you to get more familiar with the different REDCap functionality and navigating within your site's records. And if you have any questions, we will have office hours throughout to make sure all questions are answered before you enter live data. And then once your subaward has been approved, you will gain access to the live EDC to enter data. And now I'm going to hand it back to Heather.
Great, thanks, Hannah. So now that Hannah has introduced you to the NACC EDC system for CLARiTI, I wanted to come back to this topic of imaging submission. So Dr. Biber shared earlier this diagram here reflecting our plan for creating a single source for imaging data submission and a single source for accessing that fully integrated data. It's important to highlight, though, that this workflow is currently under development. We're refining requirements and in some cases building components of this pipeline right now. It will undergo rigorous testing as well as being piloted at a few sites before it's released to the entire ADRC network and all the CLARiTI sites. So in the meantime, we wanted to make sure that you are aware of how images will be submitted today. So I have a simplified view of the current MRI process from your site perspective. So of course, first of all, you collect the MRI scan, then the data need to go to two places. So the images will be submitted directly to LONI at this point in time. And then you'll also be submitting a case report form to the CLARiTI EDC system for metadata as well as other participant information related to that visit. Those images will undergo processing by the scan team, and in some cases for the advanced MRI by the advanced MRI core. And then those results will be accessible to you via the ADRC portals and data front door, as we've discussed. Here's the version for the PET workflow, which is similar, but with the added component of having the visual reads being performed on them. And then the image status and summary report availability will be available on or accessible on the ADRC portal. And then that summary report itself will be available within the CLARiTI EDC system. So that's what I wanted to share with you today, and that leads us into the PET processing. So my colleague Dan Peterson is going to be walking you through more details about PET processing and specifically visual reads, as this has been a large focus for NACC over the last few quarters to get us going on that imaging pipeline. So Dan?
Thanks, Heather. Hi, folks. I'm a software developer at NACC. I'm excited to show some of the progress we've made for the visual reads portion of the CLARiTI study. But first, a little background. So CLARiTI is collecting PET scans from our participants to determine whether they have amyloid and tau accumulation in their brain. But how is that exactly done? Well, here's an example of an elevated and a non-elevated amyloid PET scan. The key difference here is that the elevated scan is brighter and has less gray matter, white matter contrast. Now, this is a relatively clear example, but to my untrained eyes, the difference is really subtle. Accurate reads of these scans in borderline or atypical cases require expert judgment from neuroradiologists with years of experience and have gone through the FDA-approved training for each tracer. The CLARiTI Visual Reads Core has secured the cooperation of 10 experienced neuroradiologists to do these reads. In the case of a discrepancy, the reads will go to a consensus conference with at least 3 neuroradiologists to talk through the case. Readers can also nominate borderline or difficult cases for the consensus conference. This whole process is being overseen by Dr. Gil Rabinovici as head of the Visual Reads Core and administered by study staff at UCSF who have a wealth of experience with advanced PET. We're being extra careful with these reads because we're not only using these reads to assess multi-etiology dementia as part of the CLARiTI study, but we're also returning these results to the participants themselves as part of their ongoing patient care. The CLARiTI study is starting with amyloid reads, with tau coming later. The reads are being recorded on the NACC data platform utilizing the Flywheel reader task workflow. Here's a screen recording of what it looks like. Readers see their assigned reads in the Tasks tab, find a task that's to do, and launch the form. The viewer form on Flywheel shows the image, the tracer that was used, and then they fill out whether the overall read was elevated or non-elevated, as well as which regions showed increased uptake. After they submit the form, it shows the read as complete in the task list. Readers also have the option to download the scan locally to open in their viewer of choice using either the NIfTI or the DICOM image. Onboarding readers to this process has gone pretty smoothly, only requiring 1 meeting for orientation and training. And in some cases, readers were able to start their reads just communicating with CLARiTI staff over email and reviewing training materials, including written instructions and screen recordings. Next slide, please. To validate this process, the Visual Reads Calibration Study has begun, which is where 10 CLARiTI readers each do 180 reads across 4 different tracers. and then we'll measure their inter-rater agreement, as well as their accuracy compared to a previous set of gold standard readings. Additionally, a third of these scans are actually blinded duplicates, so we'll be able to assess intra-rater reliability as well. A preliminary description of the calibration study was presented at the Human Amyloid Imaging Conference last month. Next slide, please. Where we stand currently is that we've completed over 40% of those 1,800 reads, including 3 motivated readers who have completed all of their reads already. For the live CLARiTI data, we're planning to complete the first read in May of this year, with the results returned to participants in June. Throughout the study, the visual reads team is committing to a turnaround time of 90 days between when the scan is submitted and when the results are available to be returned to participants. Next slide, please. Even if we're confident in the accuracy of these reads, actually communicating the reads to our participants requires some care and attention. This process is supervised by Dr. Annalise Rahman-Filipiak, Lindsay Clark, Nate Chin, and the other members of the Return of Results Core. The template text for the document that's going to be returned to participants has been finalized, and you can see an example here. In addition to their amyloid status, it includes slices from their PET images, as well as example elevated and non-elevated images for reference. There's also a helpful glossary for the medical terminology and contact information for knowledgeable staff at their local ADRC. We've developed a process to automatically generate this document within the NACC data platform, pulling together the quantitative analysis, the final visual read status, participant information, and the PET image itself. Once the return of results study report is ready, its availability will be indicated on the ADRC portal dashboard within the NACC data platform powered by Flywheel. It can then be downloaded through the CLARiTI EDC and REDCap, accessible by study clinicians and designated return of results team members. There will be more information about this process in our April webinar, where return of results will be the focus. Overall, significant progress has been made for the PET imaging pipeline, and we look forward to full launch in the coming quarters. Thanks for your attention, and I'll hand things back to Sarah.
Okay. Hello, everyone. So as you can see, we've been very busy over the past year and a half and working in lockstep with CLARiTI to drive all of this forward. And we really look forward to collaborating with all of you to continue to move this forward. So I want to thank the entire NACC team, and in particular the faces here who are working really hard every day on this CLARiTI project to drive it forward. And a special shout out to Heather O'Connell, who is our program manager for CLARiTI at NACC. So thank you to all of you, and I'll pass it back to the CLARiTI team.
Yeah, I think now we're opening it up for questions. So I think we had one in the Q&A. I'll go ahead and read it out loud from Emily Little. We are using a harmonized approach for CLARiTI and SCAN, and we'll need some hand-holding with at least the ligand versus scan time invoicing process for all of our participants enrolled in CLARiTI, but especially for the half that should be counted and paid for with the P30 PET imaging funds. Yes, of course. So we will be tracking on the CLARiTI case report form within the EDC system, which funding source is being used for that. So that will be made available on the payment dashboard, so that detail will come through to you and we'll be able to reference that. I don't know if there was any further questions on that. I'm happy to answer anything more specific if you want to ask anything clarifying. There's another question. Will EDC allow for data imports, or is it just direct entry? So at this time, it is just direct entry. So the users will be given access to the NACC's AWS instance of REDCap. And the reason for that is that we are The system needs to be Part 11 compliant per the regulatory guidelines for CLARiTI. So in order to ensure that we are compliant, we have to have all the data being directly entered into this system. So that's why we went that direction for this project specifically. That was the last question that was submitted in the Q&A, but definitely able to take more in Q&A, or let's see, raise your hand if there's other questions that you want to ask live.
It looks like Emily had another question about digital pathology versus sending tissue to us. And the answer, Emily, is that we would like unstained slides of tissue, and Dirk Keen will provide more direction on that, but that's how we'll be able to standardize this most robustly, is to have unstained actual tissue from the relevant regions next to the ones that your pathologist usually reads themselves. We'll ask for the adjacent tissue slices and read those centrally. Hopefully that answers that one.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you. And I guess I did have one just clarifying question about the way that we are going to invoice and pay for the ligand. If it's under your IND, will that payment be passed through at UCSD with subcontracts, or it just gets paid directly to PetNet by the coordinating center?
So we're still working through that process with the radioligand companies, but they're all open outside of Lilly. They're all open to establishing a purchase order with each institution. So once they are able to add that additional that selection in their radioligand ordering system, we'll develop some SOPs just to outline, you know, if it's going to CLARiTI, if it's being paid for by P30. If it's P30, then that would just be charged to your PO that you have with the company, and then if it's charged to CLARiTI, then yeah, University of Wisconsin will get that bill directly for that.
Okay, great. But there will be a mechanism for us to have a PO even though it's your IND.
Correct.
Okay.
There's another question related to the P30 and the not in the Q&A, in the other chat. How about funding for the P30 scans? I remember there was mention at the last webinar that we could use funds for CLARiTI cases from P30. Can we use CLARiTI funds at all to complete the P30 requirement? And so I believe the answer is no to this. So for the P30 requirement, you specifically cannot use funding from CLARiTI. So that it has been made quite clear to us that there should be no double dipping with the funding itself. So even though we're using shared infrastructure like the CLARiTI protocol, and we're building these workflows, the actual funding needs to be separate. So for the P30 requirement, that has to come from your P30 to pay for those scans. All right, if there's no more questions, we'll end a little bit early. I'd like to end with a couple comments. So first, I mean, a tremendous thank you to Dr. Sarah Biber and the team at NACC. So Heather, Mark, Hannah, and Dan, those were very nice presentations and a really nice overview of the amazing work that you guys have been doing. It's just very exciting to see this progress related to NACC support and involvement with CLARiTI. You guys are involved with multiple layers of the study. Again, very impressive. The recent expansion, though, it's not just about supporting CLARiTI. It's really about supporting the sites. So there's CLARiTI, but there's also all the work for the sites. And I think in particular, the promotion of efficiency that you guys are using as a grounding principle is very important. And also the emphasis on multimodal data sharing, which is a true unique feature of the ADRC program. So thank you for being a central player in this vision. I also just want to acknowledge the sites. So it's so great to see the work from NACC in parallel to all the work from the individual sites actually start collecting this data. So it's just very exciting to see these components of the ADRC program really coming together. And I think we have a very exciting year ahead of us. So just to end, just another thank you to all the speakers. Those were wonderful presentations, and for the audience for their attention. So thank you.
Please don't hesitate.
One more question.
More
Snuck through.
Email us at nacdata.org as well.
Yes, I see a final question in the chat that asks if there are PDFs that represent the CRFs available. Those are linked on the CLARiTI website. Under, I believe it's resources and toolkits, you'll see CRFs, and that'll link you to where you can find a copy of those. Oh, I guess Erin just provided it there. Thank you.
Are the REDCap training modules available already, or do we have to finish our site startup to get access to those trainings for our coordinators?
Yeah, you do finish the site initiation visit first, and then you get instructions on how to proceed with the EDC training.
Yeah, and there's another question about the slides. So yeah, the recording, I believe we recorded. Yeah, the webinar is recorded, and that will be posted, and the slides are posted as well, I believe.
Will be
Yes,
available on the
we'll be
website as well.
posting
On the
for
website.
YouTube.
That there's a question about errors in the dashboard. I assume that your potential errors in the dashboard, I assume you're referring to the real-time CLARiTI scan dashboards. Is that correct?
No, she's probably referring to study startup dashboard, I bet.
Okay.
I would encourage you to reach out to your project coordinator if you see any errors, just to ensure that that's been updated. There's likely a reason for that. There's multiple steps in the process to turn something from red to yellow, and then from yellow to green. So there's likely a reason, but feel free to reach out to your project coordinator, and they can look into that for you. The more the green, the better. Okay, great. Well, thanks everybody. Make sure you register for the NACC conference, and we'll see you at the next webinar in April.
We'll see you all then. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Good.